Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere cold. Cold enough that the floor beneath your fur-lined boots creaks with frost, and your breath rises in little clouds, dancing in the dim firelight of a smoky longhouse. You're not alone. Of course, this place sleeps 20, maybe 30 souls all packed like pickled herring beneath a single timbered roof. The air smells like wood smoke sweat, salted fish, and a hint of wet wool that refuses to ever dry. It's not glamorous, but it's home, at least for now. It's still dark as it always is in the northern winter. The sun won't show its face for a few hours yet, but you're already awake. Not because you're brave or disciplined, mind you, but because someone nearby is snoring like a bear being strangled with a leather belt. You stretch crack a few joints and sit up in your bedding. A blanket of sheepskin, a cloak that might be yours, and a slightly damp sack you've used as a pillow. Good morning, Viking style. Today is battle day. You probably won't survive it. Statistically, most warriors don't, but that's not your most immediate concern. No, first, you have to deal with something far more delicate than swords or axes your hair. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're already tucked in, post your location and what time it is where you're listening from. I'm always curious how far these sleepy sagas travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You run your hand over your head and yep, there it is, the tangles. Last night you slept with your braid half done, and it shows. It's like your hair tried to run away in your sleep and got caught mid-escape. You sigh and reach for the most essential item in any Viking warrior's kit, the comb. Yours is carved from smooth bone, polished from years of use. It's got fine teeth on one end, wider teeth on the other, and a small crack that appeared last summer when it fell off the boat. You keep telling yourself it adds character. It's the kind of tool that doesn't just help you look presentable, it says something. It says, I care. I'm battle ready. And I might also have lice, but I'm handling it. Across the hall, Thormund is already halfway through his own ritual. He's humming off key as he braids his beard into two neat plaits that dangle down like smug little ropes. He ties them off with carved wooden beads, worn smooth with time and superstition. Thormund swears the left bead keeps his axe sharp, and the right one keeps his ex-wife away. You're not sure which is working. You nod at him, he nods back. In Viking terms, that's a full conversation. The fire in the center of the room is finally getting the idea. Someone throws on another log, and a few more sleepers begin to stir. You hear grumbling, the shuffle of feet on packed earth, a clang as someone drops a helmet and then swears in a very unheroic whisper, you don't need to check the calendar. It's definitely battle day. Still seated, you begin working the comb through your hair gently at first. No need to rip half your scalp off before breakfast. It's a slow process, especially when you're doing it with half-frozen fingers and minimal lighting. But there's a rhythm to it. You start at the ends, pulling through the knots like you're negotiating with a particularly stubborn goat. Eventually, the strands fall into line. You tuck the loose hairs into a pouch near the hearth. Hair left on the floor invites bad luck, or so your grandmother used to say. She also said never trust a man whose beard doesn't move in the wind, but that might have been about something else entirely. A figure looms behind you. Bjorn the bare-nosed, wrapped in a cloak the size of a sail, with a beard that looks like it could shelter 3 small birds. Historians still debate whether all Viking warriors braided their hair, or if it was more of a regional fashion statement. Some graves show evidence of well-groomed corpses, while others suggest a more natural approach. But one thing is clear, combs were everywhere. Bone, antler, wood, even metal. If you were rich and wanted to show off, you tie off the braid with a leather cord. Tight, but not too tight, you've learned that the hard way. No one wants to charge into battle with a splitting headache. Well, not before the other headaches arrive. You glance around. The hall is fully awake now. Cloaks swish, armor clinks. Someone is singing a battle song that's part chant, part burp. Thormund is admiring himself in a bucket of water. And across the room, 2 younger warriors are trying to outdo each other's beard braids. One's gone for an elaborate twist. The other has added beads. You're pretty sure you see a fishhook. You smirk, then adjust your braid one more time. It's not vanity. It's readiness. You're about to face chaos noise, blood, mud, and possibly your own doom. But at least your hair won't be part of the mess. And so with comb in hand and braid intact, you rise to your feet, cloak billowing slightly behind you. You're not just a man anymore. You're a silhouette in someone else's nightmare. And your hair, it's leading the way. The cold greets you like an old frenemy as you step outside. It seeps under your cloak, sneaks up your sleeves, and tickles the back of your neck. In that way, only northern wind knows how. The sky is a dusky gray, neither dawn nor night. Just a stretch of frozen time where the world holds its breath. Your boots crunch softly on the frost-hardened earth as you make your way toward the gathering circle. You're not the first one up. Several figures already mill about, some half-armored, others chewing absent-mindedly on strips of dried fish. One is attempting to tie a boot while balancing a shield on his back. Another is blowing warm air into his hands and grumbling about how real warriors shouldn't have to wake up before the sun. You don't say much. Viking mornings aren't chatty affairs. But everyone notices one thing: the comb tucked neatly into your belt. It's there like a knife, like a badge, like a tiny declaration that you take yourself and your scalp seriously. It might seem odd, but personal grooming was no small matter in the Viking world. In fact, you could argue that grooming tools were as common as weapons. Combs, tweezers, ear spoons. Yes, ear spoons have all been uncovered in Viking graves, entire kits tucked beside the sword and the drinking horn. And it makes a certain kind of sense. If you're going to face death regularly, you might as well do it without food in your beard. You settle onto a low stone, pulling your cloak tighter. Across from you, young Hrolf is working through his own hair situation. He's new. His braid is lumpy and too loose, the strands refusing to obey. You know that look, equal parts frustration and resignation. You had it too once. You using oil, you ask, nodding toward his hands. He shrugs. Ran out. You reach into your pouch and pull out a tiny stoppered flask, cedar oil mixed with goose fat. It smells faintly of trees and poultry, but it does the job. You toss it to him. He fumbles it but catches it on the second try. A small victory. He nods, grateful. Thanks. No problem, you mutter. Don't let it freeze. Goose fat has become something of a legend among your crew, Someone swore it made their hair gleam like polished elm. Someone else said it attracted women from 3 villages away. And then there was that unfortunate case where someone stored it next to the lamp oil and learned the hard way that not everything in a flask is hair-friendly. Still, the tradition holds, and so does the gossip. Did you hear about Olaf? Someone says from behind you. You turn slightly. It's Einar, who always starts his stories like they're state secrets and ends them like they're soap operas. What about him, you ask? He borrowed Jarl Olaf's comb, Einar whispers without asking. You wince. That's a bold move. Borrowing someone's comb, especially a chieftain's, without permission, that's social suicide. In a culture that values personal presentation as much as war strategy, it's like stealing someone's sword and then using it to pick your teeth. What happened? Well, Einar says, lowering his voice even further, there was a shouting match, some passive-aggressive poetry, and then someone dented Olaf's shield on purpose. You nod slowly. So, a saga in the making, exactly. You chuckle, but make a mental note never to lend your comb to anyone. Again. In Viking society, grooming wasn't just practical. It was personal, intimate even. Many warriors had their hair braided by a sister, a wife, or a friend. And if no one else was available, they did it themselves with varying levels of success. Your own braids have improved over time, mostly due to trial error and one particularly blunt critique from your aunt, who claimed you looked like a sheep trying to dress like a man. She wasn't wrong. You stand up and stretch. Your hair, freshly combed and braided, swings just slightly with the motion. It feels right, centered, like it's not just a fashion choice but a declaration. You're ready. Then, almost as an afterthought, you glance toward the training field, where some of the younger warriors are sparring half-heartedly. One of them, a red-headed kid with a mop of curls, keeps stopping mid-fight to brush his hair out of his eyes. It's adorable and dangerous. You walk over. Want a comb, you ask, holding yours out. He hesitates, eyes wide. I thought, you know, that was yours. It is, you say. But I boiled it last week. You're probably safe. He takes it like it's a ceremonial dagger, nods his thanks, and starts working through his chaotic curls. You watch for a moment before walking back toward the circle. Historians still argue whether Viking grooming habits were daily rituals or just battle day fussiness. Some evidence suggests combing was an essential part of everyday life. Other sources argue it was mainly reserved for formal occasions, raids, and funerals. Either way, the message is clear. Looking like you've just rolled out of a haystack is not historically heroic. Back at the circle, someone is passing around a jug of warm mead laced with spices. You take a sip. It burns, but in a friendly way, like a cousin who punches too hard but still brings you bread when you're sick. The sky begins to shift just a little. A paler band of gray stretches along the horizon. Morning, reluctant as ever, is making its entrance. Soon the horns will sound. The longships will slide down to the water. The shouting will begin. But for now, there's this moment. Quiet, crisp, and just a little ridiculous. You slide your comb back into your belt. You're ready. You're still tracing the rim of your wooden cup with your thumb when someone walks by trailing the sharp scent of pine resin and beard wax. It's a smell you've come to associate with confidence, or at least with someone who wants to look confident while trying not to sneeze. You glance up and see Kjartan, tall, broad-shouldered, and currently wearing 3 braids, none of which match. One goes left, one goes right, and the third appears to be engaged in civil war. No one says anything. This is how Viking mornings operate. Grunts, nods, and the occasional silent judgment about another man's grooming choices. Still, the topic is unavoidable. Because as strange as it may seem, grooming is the main thing anyone's doing right now. Not polishing swords, not planning a strategy, just hair. Beards mostly, hair second. One guy is even sitting cross-legged, patiently cleaning his comb with the tip of his knife like he's preparing a sacred relic, which in a way he is. You return your attention to your own beard? Or more specifically, the way the braid is starting to loosen already. Typical. You undo it carefully. No sudden tugs, no ripped out hairs, and start over. 3 clean strands. Pull, twist, tuck. You've gotten good at this. Years of practice of trial and error, of learning the hard way that you do not use salted butter as a styling aid, no matter what Rurik swears by. Braiding isn't just about appearance. It's intention, a kind of focus. Like setting the angle of your shield or double knotting your sandals, the process grounds you, makes you feel ready. And in a world where battle can break out over who sneezed in whose ale, you need all the readiness you can get. To your right, someone's talking about goose fat again. I swear by it, says Eric, who has exactly 4 teeth and the smoothest beard in the camp. Warms the face shines. The hair keeps the wind out. Also smells like soup, someone mutters. Exactly. Eric grins. Battle soup. You don't use goose fat personally. You tried once, spent the next 2 hours smelling like roasted dinner and getting followed by a very enthusiastic dog. Still, to each their own. Grooming is deeply personal. Some men swear by oils made from juniper, others from crushed herbs or pine tar. One guy tried crushed berries once. He hasn't been invited back. The theories abound. Some claim that a well-groomed appearance intimidates enemies. Others say it honors the gods. A few claim it's about impressing the local shield maidens, who for the record probably aren't evaluating your split ends before deciding whether you're rating material. But who knows? What is certain is this: you feel better when your hair is right. Not just physically, though, that helps, but mentally. It's your morning ritual, your one moment of calm before the chaos begins. Remember that time you used fish oil, someone says, nodding toward you. You groan. I was young. You were 25. It was dark. It was the middle of the day. You wave them off, but inside you're laughing. That day your beard was shiny, yes. It was also irresistible to every cat within a 3-village radius. Lesson learned. These shared grooming misadventures have become their own sort of oral tradition. Not quite saga-worthy, but close. Around the campfire, they're traded like war stories. The time someone braided their beard too tightly and passed out mid-battle. The time another warrior tried bleaching his hair with lichen juice and ended up looking like a startled goose. The great comb loss of last spring. You remember that one especially well. You were crossing a small stream. The current wasn't strong, but your foot slipped. You didn't fall to thank Odin, but your comb slipped from your belt and vanished downstream in a blur of white bone and regret. You still mourn it. It had been yours since your first raid. You'd carved it yourself from reindeer antlers, etched little runes along the spine. It combed well. It held up under pressure. It made your hair feel like something the gods would nod at in approval. Since then, you've carried a spare. Not as fancy, but functional, and now tied to your belt with a bit of cord. No more sacrifices to the river gods. You glance down now at that backup comb and wonder, was the old one was really better? Or are you just sentimental historians, still debate whether Viking grooming tools were heirlooms or disposable status symbols or simple necessities? Some graves contain intricate combs with silver fittings. Others are just a worn wooden strip barely shaped. But nearly every grave has one. That much isn't debated. A breeze drifts in from the fjord, cold and slightly fishy. You pull your cloak tighter and smooth your beard with your palms. You've rebraided it, now added a small bead at the tip. Wooden, rounded, not flashy. Just enough to keep the ends neat. It'll hold, hopefully. At your feet, someone's carving something into a bit of driftwood. You look down. It's a comb. Unfinished, still rough, but already taking shape. You nod once, silently impressed. The young man carving it doesn't look up. For my brother, he mutters, you don't ask for more. You don't need to. Nearby, Thormund is polishing the silver clasp of his belt comb, a decorative one, too fragile for real use but impressive to wear. He catches you looking. Wedding gift, he says. Didn't last, but the comb's solid. You grin. More dependable than the wife, then. He laughs, and better at detangling. There's comfort in this strange little world of hair and hushed jokes, a sense of order, a kind of brotherhood. You're not just warriors, you're men who understand the struggle of a stubborn knot, of a frizzed end of a comb that snaps at the worst possible time. And that understanding runs deep. Soon, the horns will sound. You'll gather your gear, hoist your shield, and march toward whatever waits beyond the trees. But right now, you're all just men with cold fingers, shared stories, and combs tucked securely into your belts. You run your fingers over your braid one more time. Not perfect, but good enough to face the day. The sun is finally showing the faintest sliver of gold along the tree line, casting a sleepy light over the camp. Not a bright sunrise, more of a soft, apologetic glow that says, sorry I'm late. Did I miss anything? The frost on the grass glimmers. Your breath still fogs in the air, but it no longer stings your nose. It's the hour between breakfast and battle, where warriors fidget, whisper, and yes, keep grooming. You're twisting the ends of your braid for the third time when a familiar scratching sound catches your ear. Behind you, someone is combing not their beard, not their head hair, but their eyebrows. You turn slowly. It's Haldor. Of course it is. Haldor is known for three things: impressive eyebrows, an unfortunate tendency to narrate his dreams, and owning the finest cedar comb this side of the fjord. Today he's working those brows like a man polishing a sword hilt. You raise a brow of your own. What he says, not looking up. Battle brows, you nod slowly, naturally. There's a logic to it, you suppose? Appear confident, feel confident. And nothing says confidence like aggressively tamed forehead foliage. Your attention drifts, as it often does when nerves creep in. You look down at your boots. The leather's worn, the stitching a bit frayed. You tap your toe against the ground. Listen to the sound it makes. Dirt over stone, a solid surface. You can work with that. Next to your foot, someone's dropped their comb. You lean down, pick it up, an old one bone with one missing tooth. You turn to hand it back, but the man waves it off. Keep it, he says. It bites. You grin and slip it into your pouch. Another spare. You can never have too many. Nearby, a group of warriors is gathered around a small, steaming bowl. It's got a greenish tint. Someone's poking it with a stick. What is that, you ask? Birch sap shampoo, comes the reply. You blink. Seriously? Collected it last night, the man says proudly. Boiled it down, mixed with ash. You lean closer, sniff. It smells faintly sweet with an undertone of regret. And yet you're intrigued. Historians still argue whether Viking hair was actually clean by modern standards. Some suggest it was surprisingly well maintained, thanks to the abundance of natural rinses like birch sap, spring water, and even clay. Others argue that the clean Viking is more myth than reality, a romanticized version crafted by later writers. Either way, there's some evidence they tried, and trying is frankly most of the battle. You watch as a young warrior dips his comb into the birch mixture and runs it through his hair. His expression shifts somewhere between satisfaction and slight horror. Feels weird, he mutters. Looks weirder, someone replies. He shrugs and keeps going. You're tempted. But you remember the last time you experimented with something natural. Stinging nettle, they said. Great for scalp health, they said. You couldn't wear a helmet for a week. So for now, you stick with what you know. Gentle tugging, no nonsense. You return to your usual spot, a flat stone by the fire, and pull out your main comb again. The backup from earlier sits nearby, but this one's the hero. You pass the broad teeth through your braid check for any snags or rebellions. So far, so good. Across the clearing, an older warrior is braiding his mustache. Not twisting it playfully, mind you, but braiding it. You didn't even know that was possible. He catches you looking and gives a proud nod. Windproof, he says. You nod back, deeply impressed. That's the thing. There's an art to all of this, to the rituals, the tiny decisions. Where to part your hair, how tightly to braid, whether to add beads, leather, or metal clasps. Everyone's got a different approach, and everyone swears theirs is best. You've seen some wild ideas. One warrior added bits of charcoal to his hair to look fiercer. Another used beeswax to sculpt his braid into a spiral. Then there was the guy who tried to frost the ends with snow for dramatic flair. Looked amazing. Lasted 7 minutes. But today the talk is all about styles. Loose locks, battle braids, top knots. And, of course, the bun. Battle bun, someone mutters. You groan. This debate again. It started months ago, when a visiting warrior arrived with his hair tied in a tight bun at the back of his head. Some thought it was genius out of the box, neat, intimidating. Others called it the turnip knot and claimed it angered the gods. To this day, the camp remains divided. You personally don't mind it, but you also don't want to be that guy. The one everyone talks about after the battle, not because of his bravery, but because of his controversial hair choices. Historians still debate whether battle buns were actually a thing, or just a modern misinterpretation of artistic depictions. Some say Viking leaders tied up their hair during combat for practical reasons. Others argue the images were stylized, and that loose, wild hair was the real statement. In truth, probably both. You finish rechecking your braid, then brush the front of your hair back with your fingers. Not to style it, just to feel the rhythm of the motion. It's calming, repetitive, like whittling or sharpening a blade. It gives your hands something to do while your mind spins. And your mind is spinning. Because the truth is, battle looms. You hear it in the shouts, the clang of practice weapons, the shifting of shields. The calm is ending. Still, there's comfort here, in the grooming circle, in the shared quiet. You're not alone. Everyone here, from the loudest warrior to the youngest boy, still struggling to tie his braids straight, is just trying to be ready. You stand once more, comb tucked securely at your side, hair smooth, braid tight. The mind is mostly quiet, mostly. You're pacing now. Not because you're nervous, at least that's what you tell yourself, but because your body needs something to do. The cold doesn't bother you as much as it did earlier. Either it's warming up, or you're starting to settle into that strange, silent focus that comes just before a storm. You walk slow loops along the edge of Camp Cloak, brushing your boots, frost crackling under each step like thin parchment. Your fingers keep returning to your braid, checking, adjusting, smoothing. It's still tight, still symmetrical. But something about battle makes you doubt even your best work. You retie the leather loop at the end. Not too loose, not too tight, just enough to keep the wind out and the nerves in. Behind you, someone lets out a long breath. Not a sigh exactly, just the sound of a man trying to center himself. You glance over and see Hrolf again, the younger warrior from earlier. His braid is holding, though a few shorter hairs stick out here and there like little horns. You give him a nod. It's looking good. He blinks, surprised. Really? Sure, you say. Better than mine the first time. He smiles, and for a moment, that tightness in his shoulders softens. Small things matter more than they seem. You continue pacing and find yourself back near the fire pit, which is mostly glowing embers now. Someone's poked it back to life enough to warm hands and maybe toast the edge of a shield. You stretch your fingers out toward the glow. It's not much heat, but it's the kind that feels earned, familiar, like the warmth of a worn tunic or a shared joke. Beside you, Brinjar settles onto a nearby stone, a fresh knot of hair in his fist. He groans softly. Still at war with that braid, you ask? It's winning, he mutters. I think it tied itself in the night. You sit beside him. Need a second pair of hands. He nods without a word. You take the twisted mess gently. Fingers working through the strands like untangling rope after a storm. Brinjar's hair is thick, like it remembers every gust of wind it's ever met. You work carefully, starting low and moving upward until the strands slide free again. There you say, clean slate. He exhales through his nose. I'd rather face 10 Saxons than that knot again. You just did, you say, and hand him the comb. He smiles. Then I owe you. Remember that you grin, in case I drop my axe later. Someone passes behind you, muttering something about snow getting in the soap pot. You glance over and see a group of warriors gathered around a shallow bowl that's steaming faintly. One of them is poking it with the handle of his comb, looking thoughtful. What's that, you ask? Birch sap, says a tall warrior named Skeggy. Boiled it down last night. Mixed in a bit of ash and honey. For your hair, he nods. Smells strange. Works wonders. You lean in and sniff. It's sweet, earthy. Not unpleasant, but sticky. You sure it's not breakfast? Could be both. One of the younger men dips his fingers in and runs them through his hair. It gives a soft, tacky sheen, not greasy, not dry. Something in between. He seems pleased until a bee takes an alarming interest in his head. Optional step, someone mutters. You return to your own space and reach into your pouch. Cedar oil, small cloth spare comb. Your kit is simple but well kept. The main comb on your favorite is still warm from your belt. You run it through your beard one more time. The motion is slow, familiar. Click, click, click. Each stroke is steady. Each knot is gone. You've done this so many times, your hands barely think about it anymore. Nearby, the battle bun debate has started again. I'm telling you, it keeps the helmet from sliding. One man insists. Another scoffs. It makes you look like a chicken sitting on your head. You're just jealous of my structure. You smile quietly to yourself. Every camp has this argument. Some swear by tightly coiled buns that keep hair compact and out of reach. Others prefer loose braids or free-flowing locks that whip in the wind, like some saga hero. Historians still debate whether such styles actually existed, or if they're just modern projections onto ancient lives. Some depictions show neat knots and braids. Others suggest wild manes and tangled curls. It's hard to say what was common, what was fashion, what was function, and what was just someone having a particularly bad hair day in the 9th century. You've tried the bun once. It felt like wearing a very polite fist on the back of your skull. Functional, yes. Comfortable, no. You've since stuck to the braid, one long strand tied just tight enough to stay, but loose enough to breathe. It feels right. Thorman joins you again this time without saying anything. He simply sits, leans back on his elbows, and closes his eyes. You good? You ask. Yeah, he replies, just listening. To what? He opens one eye. The quiet. It's almost gone, and he's right. Around the camp, the energy has changed. The idle chatter fades. The combs are slipping back into belts. The braids are checked and tightened. The jokes become quieter or fall away entirely. Even the horses seem to sense it. Their hooves shuffle less. Their breath fogs in rhythm, waiting. You stand slowly and stretch. Your cloak rustles and the morning air brushes your neck. You smooth the edges of your braid once more. One last check. The small wooden bead at the end is secure. The hair doesn't pull. The scalp feels relaxed. You're ready. Someone nearby starts humming an old chant. Not loud, just under the breath. A tune your grandmother used to sing while boiling water for tea and brushing your hair with the blunt old comb that always smelled like lavender and ash. You remember that comb, thick, heavy, carved with clumsy runes. It pulled more than it smoothed, but it was part of growing up, part of becoming. You hear the horns now, not urgent, not panicked, just a single solid sound, long and low, like a warning from the bones of the earth. It rolls through the trees and across the fields, pulling every ear toward the sound. You reach down and touch the comb at your side. You don't even think about it anymore. It's a habit, like adjusting your sword belt or kissing a lucky coin. Some men carry charms. Some whisper to the gods. You carry a comb. Because grooming, ridiculous as it may seem to outsiders, is part of who you are. Clean braid, clear mind, balanced hands, that's your rule. One by one, the warriors begin to move toward the gathering point. Jarl Eric is already there. His silver beard braided like a waterfall of steel, fastened with a single strip of red leather. His hair is tied high tight, deliberate, perfectly centered. You wonder who helped him with it this morning. He raises a hand. The camp stills. The wind carries a faint hush. No speech, no war cry. Just that look. The kind of look that says, you know what this is. You're ready. And you are. You take your place among the other's hand, brushing the comb one last time. Let the braid hold. Let the wind come. You're ready now. The ground beneath your boots softens slightly as the frost begins to retreat. Not in defeat, but with slow resignation. The kind of melt that doesn't steam or vanish, it just seeps quietly into the dirt. A pale sun hovers behind thin clouds, doing its best to act important while providing absolutely no warmth. You squint up at it, then lower your gaze to the path ahead. It's time. You join the rest of the warriors, making their way toward the longships. It's not a march, not yet. More like a slow drift of bodies and breath-heavy cloaks and muffled boots, each man half lost in his own thoughts. You feel it under the surface in the bones. Anticipation. Not fear, exactly. Not excitement either. Just that calm, strange tension that arrives when something big is about to begin. And through it all, even now, your hand finds your braid, still tight, still clean. You run a finger along the leather tie at the end, check the knot, and check the smoothness. You know it won't stay perfect once the wind kicks in and the oars start to splash. But for now, it's flawless. It feels like yours. You glance sideways and see Thormund adjusting the small wooden bead he added earlier. He untwists, then retwists it with the precision of someone diffusing a very small, very hairy bomb. You ever think we spend more time on hair than on weapons, he mutters. You snort. Hair doesn't rust. He gives a half smile. Fair. As you walk, the docks begin to appear through the morning haze. Wooden planks slick with frost ropes, coiled like sleeping snakes. And beyond them, the ships long, lean, dragon-proud, and patient. The long ships rest like wolves dozing in the snow, aware of their own strength, just waiting for the command to rise. But no one rushes. Some sit on crates to retie boots. Others stand in small knots, sharing low voices, checking gear. And here and there, men are still braiding, still adjusting. One is carefully threading a scrap of blue-dyed cloth into his beard. Another leans close to a puddle, trying to catch a distorted glimpse of himself before committing to a center part. You can't help but smile. To an outsider, this might all seem ridiculous, dozens of warriors fussing over split ends and curl patterns. But to you and to every man here, it makes perfect sense. Because this is the last thing you can control. The wind, the waves, the outcome of the fight. Those are the gods' business. But your braid, your beard, your scalp, that's yours. A tiny kingdom you rule with a comb and a bit of oil. You pause at the edge of the dock, watching a man finish weaving a friend's braid. They don't speak. The one being helped sits still, head bowed slightly. The other moves with careful fingers, smoothing, looping, and tying off. It's strangely intimate, quiet, almost sacred. Historians still argue whether this kind of grooming assistance was common among Viking warriors. Some say the presence of combs in nearly every burial site indicates a deeply personal daily ritual. Others argue it might have been more ceremonial, reserved for special days like weddings, feasts, or war. But standing here watching two men prepare each other for battle, with nothing more than strands of hair and bone combs, it's hard not to believe it mattered more than we've guessed. You step onto the dock. The boards shift under your weight, creaking faintly. You walk slowly, glancing at the ships. Yours is second from the left. You know it by the chipped paint near the prow and the bit of twine someone tied into the rigging for luck. You climb aboard. The longship rocks slightly, welcoming you like an old friend with a stiff back. You settle onto a bench, adjust your cloak, and take out your comb, not to use it now, but just to hold it. You rub a thumb along its spine. There's a tiny nick near one end. You got that 2 winters ago during a storm, when your pack fell and the comb slid across the deck. You'd cursed, then laughed, then smoothed it with a wet stone. The scratch never vanished, but it never mattered. Next to you, Haldor is once again redoing his braid. How many times is that, you ask? 3, he says. It keeps going crooked. Maybe it's not the braid. Maybe it's your head. He pauses. Fair point. He starts over anyway. You glance behind and see Hrolf climbing aboard, clutching his cloak like it's a lifeline, his braids holding up. Better than before. He looks at you, a question in his eyes. You nod, still straight. He grins and takes his seat. A few benches over, an older warrior named Stig is retying the ends of his beard with a small braided leather loop. His motions are slow, deliberate. You've heard stories he once fought 5 men and walked away with nothing but a cracked tooth and a broken comb. He still carries the broken comb. Says it brings him balance. You believe it. The ship shifts again. The others are boarding now. Blades, sheathed shields, slung boots clunking against wood. The air is filled with the quiet sound of preparation, the rustle of wool, the faint creak of leather, the occasional groan from the ship as it adjusts to its burden. You take one last pass through your beard, smoothing it down with your palm. You know it'll tangle the moment the wind hits. You know you'll come back smelling like salt and fish and fear. But right now, it's perfect. It's clean. It's yours. There's a thud beside you. Thormund has dropped his helmet and is now fishing something from his belt pouch. You glance over. Another comb, you ask. He holds up a tiny one, carved from an antler. Delicate. For luck, he says. My son made it. You nod. Then don't lose it. He tucks it back in. That's the idea. The call comes from the shore. One long, low note from a curved horn. The sound rolls across the bay, stirring the gulls and silencing the men. Conversations stop. Hands freeze. Every eye turns toward the sound. Jarl Erik stands tall on the dock cloak, rippling behind him, his beard braided down to the middle of his chest, fastened with 3 silver rings. No words, just presence. He lifts his hand, then he lowers it. The oars dip into the water. The ship begins to move. You lean back against the hull, eyes closed for just a moment, feeling the rhythm of wood on water, the cool air on your face, the weight of the comb still pressing lightly against your belt. You've braided, you've brushed, you've prepared. Whatever comes next, let it come. The longship glides across the bay like it's been waiting all winter to do just this. Water parts cleanly at the prow, leaving a soft hush in its wake. One of those sounds you feel more than hear. Oars rise and fall in rhythm, Not fast, not forced, but steady. Rehearsed. It's a kind of choreography, known only to those who've crossed more than one sea with the same men beside them. You sit quietly near the center back, resting against the railing, eyes scanning the horizon, or pretending to. Really, you're watching the hair of the men around you, not judging, just observing. Ragnar to your right has his hair in a tight double plait wound around the back of his head like a coiled snake. Impractical for sleep, but perfect for intimidation. The pattern is clean, the lines sharp. You recognize the work, it's his wife's style. She braids with the precision of a scribe and the strength of a sailor. Further down the bench, Bjarka has gone the opposite route. Wild curls pinned back with what appears to be a fishbone. Brave, risky, somehow effective. Then there's Oddvar, always Oddvar. His braid is half undone, already flapping in the sea while like a defeated flag. You didn't tie it, did you? You ask across the bench. Oddvar shrugs. I did. Double knot single. It's fine, you just raise an eyebrow. He sighs and reaches for it again. Fine, you win. You hand him your spare leather tie, one you keep wrapped around the hilt of your comb. He catches it, loops it neatly, and this time it holds. He nods once, grateful, in that quiet, begrudging way of men who rarely admit they need help, but are glad when it arrives. The wind picks up as the shoreline narrows behind you. The cliffs that frame the bay give way to the open sea, and with them comes the chorus of Viking travel, the low groan of wood flexing the rhythmic splash of oars, and the sharp whistle of wind through armor straps and helmet crests. You tuck your chin slightly, letting your braid rest against your collar. The sea has a habit of making hair feel heavier, like the salt adds its own weight to every strand. A few of the men are already running fingers through their beards, untangling knots that weren't there when you set off. You take out your comb, not because your hair needs fixing, but because your hands need something to do. The teeth glide through the top of your braid, smooth and reassuring. The act steadies you. It's like sharpening steel, but for the mind. Historians still debate whether combing during travel served a real function or was simply a habit. Maybe both. Some archaeological sites suggest combs were kept in pouches or tucked into boots. Others show signs of wear that hint at frequent, even obsessive use. You can believe it. Believe out here with the world shifting beneath your feet and the sky wide enough to swallow your thoughts, it helps to have a small piece of order in your palm. Beside you, Thormund chuckles softly. You're at it again. Just checking. You've checked it 6 times. It keeps my hands calm. He grins. Better than chewing your nails. Better for your nails, you counter. He leans back, eyes half closed. Have you ever thought about the first Viking who combed his hair before a fight? Just one guy sitting by a fire looking at his reflection in a puddle thinking, yeah, that'll scare him. You laugh. Or maybe he just had an itch, even better. A gull cries above. The boat rocks gently. In the distance, a second ship follows close, its crew a mirror of your own braided, silent waiting. The man across from you, Valley, is binding the end of his hair with a strip of cloth dyed with woad. It stands out blue against ash blonde. He notices your glance and shrugs. For luck, he says. Does it work? He gestures to himself. Still here? Fair enough. You watch as he finishes the tie, then smooths the braid back over his shoulder, with a motion so casual, it looks like a habit from childhood. Maybe it is. Maybe he learned it from a mother or a sister, someone long gone, but still present in the way his hands move. It makes you think about your own first braid, your aunt probably. Or was it your older brother? No, wait, it was your mother. You were 6. She sat you on a stool near the hearth and tugged at your hair until your scalp felt like it might lift off, muttering the whole time about knots that could trap fish. You'd hated it. And then when she finished, she turned you to the polished pot and said, "There. You look like someone who could win something. You hadn't understood what that meant at the time. But you remember how you'd stood a little taller afterward. How the older boys looked at you differently. How even your uncle had said, 'Now that's a proper warrior in training.' You'd worn that braid for a week, slept on it, fought in it, bragged about it. And when it finally came undone during a rainstorm, you were heartbroken. That night you learned to braid it yourself. You blink back to the present. The sea is darker now, the clouds heavier. The oarsmen pull slower, more carefully as the waves grow restless. You shift slightly, tucking your braid into your collar to keep it from whipping. You take your comb and slide it away into the pouch near your belt. No more touch-ups now. The braid will hold or it won't. And either way, you're ready. Landfall in an hour. Someone calls. You glance at the men around you. Faces are serious now, brows furrowed. But their hair is immaculate. If this is your last landing, at least you'll face it with dignity. In a part so straight, it could split stone. The sea is louder now. Not roaring, not crashing, just louder. More insistent. Each wave slaps the hull with a deliberate rhythm, like a slow heartbeat speeding up before a race. The longship groans in response, wood flexing under the pressure, but it holds. Viking ships were made for this, for wind and water, for tension and weight. They ride storms like wolves ride wind. You sit with your back straight, legs steady, and arms crossed loosely over your chest. The comb is tucked safely away now. Your braid is tight. Final checks complete. There's nothing else to do but wait. Across from you, someone begins humming. Low and tuneless, just a thread of sound barely louder than the waves. You recognize the voice. It's Eric the Younger, whose full beard makes him look older than half the elders in camp. He's staring at the horizon, lips moving with a melody that might have once been a lullaby. Or a funeral chant. Hard to say. Others begin to shift. The hum spreads faint, but present until it hangs in the air like mist. It's not planned, it's not rehearsed, just the sound of men preparing for something they can't fully name. Your fingers twitch, but you resist the urge to reach for your braid again. It's done. You did the work. Now let it hold. Thorman breaks the silence with a mutter. This is the worst part. You glance over. The waiting. He nods. The thinking. You know what he means. Every moment between leaving shore and touching land is filled with thoughts that have nowhere to go. They turn in your chest like ropes in a storm pulling tighter with every wave. You try to focus on simple things. The smell of salt and pine resin, the damp weight of your cloak, the way the edge of your comb presses lightly into your side. All reminders that you are here. Present. solid, braided. The ship pitches slightly and someone across the deck slips. He catches himself on the gunwale with a grunt. His braid, once perfect, is now twisted up like a vine. He curses under his breath, then looks around. No one says anything, he growls. Too late. Someone chuckles. You pretend not to notice. So does everyone else. Because we all know that braid won't survive the landing. There's something oddly comforting about that. The idea that perfection is temporary, that all the combing, the twisting, the oiling, it's not wasted, even if it comes undone in the first 5 seconds of battle. It still mattered, still grounded you, still gave you a quiet moment before the noise. You shift your weight and look to the stern. Jarl Erik is standing there, hair tied back, in a high, tight knot beard, neatly separated into 2 braids with iron rings at the ends. He holds the ship's rhythm in his shoulders, every pitch, every sway, absorbed without effort. He's not looking at the men. He's looking at the shore. So are you now. It's faint, just a gray smudge between sea and sky, but it's there, land, there. Someone stands, then another. Soon everyone is rising, quietly, automatically. You follow, steadying yourself against the railing as the boat crests a wave. The others are adjusting straps, checking weapons, touching the braids and knots one final time. You catch glimpses of oil-darkened hair feathers, woven through side locks beads, carved with runes. Each man is a tapestry, a walking, breathing saga in the making. One of the younger warriors turns to you. Does it look all right? You glance at him. His braid is uneven, a bit lumpy near the end, but his eyes are wide, and his hands are shaking just slightly. It looks strong, you say. He nods quickly, exhales, like that. Answer just bought him a little courage. Historians still debate how much meaning Vikings placed on hair presentation in battle. Some argue it was purely practical. Keep it out of your eyes, don't let it snag in armor. Others say the styles carried social weight, that the number of braids, the length even, the way you tied them spoke volumes about your clan, your history, your role. Maybe both are true. Maybe none of it matters. But out here on this boat about to face God's know-what, on a foreign shore, every braid is a shield. Every combed lock is a vow. The ship rolls again. Someone swears softly. You adjust your feet, your balance shifting instinctively. You've made this kind of approach before. Maybe not this exact coast, maybe not with this exact crew. But the feeling is the same. The hum has stopped now, replaced by breath. Just breathe. In, out, in again. You glance toward your comb tucked into its loop of leather on your belt. You're not going to use it again today, probably. But its weight comforts you. A small carved piece of order against the storm. Beside you, Thormund finally speaks. Not a joke this time. You think we'll all come back? You don't answer at first. Not because you don't have thoughts, but because the question is too big for words. Instead, you say, I think we'll be remembered. That seems to satisfy him. The coast is clearer now. Rocky cliffs rise like teeth with strips of low beach between them. There's no one visible, yet, but you can feel the tension tighten, like a cord being pulled taut just beneath the wood. Jarl Erik raises his hand. You take one last breath. One last look at your crew, at your braid, at your past. Then you shift your stance. Oars are raised, shields come down, and still your hair holds, because of course it does, you made sure of it. The boat's keel grinds against sand, and for a moment everything stills. Not the wind. It's still teasing your cloak, slipping its fingers through your braid. But the men. The tension snaps like a rope pulled too tight. There's no call to charge, no roaring cries or pounding drums. Just the thud of boots hitting wet earth one after another. You step off last, letting your feet sink slightly into the gritty shore. Cold water curls around your ankles, then slips away. Your cloak flaps at your side, heavy with salt. Around you, men begin to fan out, some crouch low. Others check their belts or unhook shields. One pauses to retie his braid for the third time. You don't blame him. The wind on shore is worse than at sea. Stronger, sharper. It pulls tugs and snaps at hair like a bratty younger sibling. Already you feel strands trying to work their way free from your braid. But you prepared for this. Every loop is tight. Every knot is double bound. Every length smoothed with oil, not vanity but foresight. You crouch for a moment behind a drift of rock, pulling your hood closer and checking your comb. It's still there, tucked beside your knife. It feels silly, maybe, but it grounds you, a small reminder that the person beneath the armor, beneath the wool and leather and steel, is still you. And you are ready. You glance up just as a gust whips a fellow warrior's braid into his mouth mid-sentence. He gags, sputters, and swats it away. Everyone within earshot smirks, but no one laughs too loud. Because it could easily be any of you. Battle may be brutal, but bad hair timing is truly humbling. You stand again and move up the beach boots, finding solid purchase in sand turned firm by frost. The wind howls once more. Your braid flutters slightly at the end, but holds. You allow yourself a moment of pride. Nearby, Hrolf is trying to tighten his braid while also keeping his shield balanced. It's not going well. You approach and tilt your head. Want help? He hesitates. Will it hurt? Only if you've sinned recently. He cracks a nervous grin. Then it'll probably hurt a lot. You crouch behind him and begin. The braid is loose in the middle, too much slack near the scalp. Rookie mistake. You unweave it gently and start from the top, fingers moving with calm precision. He shifts slightly, but you keep the motion firm, steady. There you say, finishing with a sharp tug and a quick wrap of cord. Battle ready. He touches it, testing the tension. That feels better. It'll stay. He nods once, thanks. And just like that, you've passed on what someone once did for you. Maybe that's what braiding really is, a ritual of care, passed hand to hand, scalp to scalp, through generations of calloused fingers. You look around. The others are spreading out into formation now. Small clusters of warriors were forming lines across the upper shore between patches of rock and scraggly brush. The Jarl stands at the front wind, tugging at his long cloak. His beard is braided in 3 symmetrical strands, each tip fastened with a stone bead said to be carved from old mountain bone. He raises a hand. You and the others go still. You know what this means. Not a charge, not yet, but movement, positioning. The slow unfolding of battle's first pages. Still, no one speaks. Instead, they adjust. And again, it's the hair. Ragnar tightens his side plait with practiced ease, looping the tie twice for good measure. Bjark flicks a feather free from his curls and sticks it back where it belongs. Oddvar rebraids one end of his mustache that's come loose, muttering about the cursed sea wind. And you just run your thumb once more along the braid behind your shoulder, confirming what you already know. It's secure. Historians often puzzle over these quiet moments, the lull between arrival and action. The way warriors filled the silence not with sharpening swords or shouting prayers, but with smoothing hair, fixing clasps, adjusting beads. Some say it was about control, others say it was about vanity. But maybe, just maybe, it was about ritual, about rhythm. A final brushstroke before the chaos. A horn sounds from the ridge above. Short, sharp. A warning, not a command. You look up, narrowing your eyes. Just shadows for now. No movement. But you know how fast things shift. Wind becomes arrows. Stillness becomes thunder. A moment's peace becomes a lifetime's memory. You step forward with your unit shield raised, boots digging into packed sand. The ground gives slightly beneath your step, but it's firm enough. You've marched on worse. Frozen rivers, muddy marshes, the decks of ships in a full storm. This is nothing. Still, your hand moves to your braid once more, not to fix it, not to change it, just to feel it, to know it's there, that something about you is still whole. Beside you, Thormund taps your shoulder. He nods toward the man ahead. His braid has come undone completely, and now flaps like a flag. Should we? He asks. You shrug. If he survives, he'll regret it. If he doesn't, at least he'll haunt the battlefield, looking like a mess. Thormund chuckles, and so do you. It's a strange thing, this hair humor before the war, but maybe not so strange. You hold on to what you can. A comb, a braid, a shared joke in the wind. These are the things that survive long after stories get embellished, after names fade from runestones. The horn sounds again, 2 short blasts. The line begins to shift forward. You grip your shield. You check your feet. You check your breath. And yes, you check your braid. Because the world may fall apart in the next hour, but your hair will remain magnificent. The keel strikes sand with a hollow thud. And for a moment, time shrinks to nothing but that sound. It's not loud, but it's final. The longship rocks gently in its cradle of salt and shoreline, and every man aboard stiffens slightly like a string being pulled tight. The oars go still. The chatter stops. Even the wind seems to pause to listen. You feel it in your boots before you even rise, the solid earth beneath the hull firm and indifferent. This is not home. This is someone else's shore. You stand slowly, letting your cloak shift around your shoulders. The wind off the water cuts sharper, here funneled through cliff gaps and pine trees beyond the beach. It grabs at your braid as if trying to unmake it, testing the patience of your careful knots. You feel a strand slip free near your temple, but leave it be. You did the work this morning. It will hold. One by one, the warriors begin to disembark. Some leap lightly into the shallows, splashing their boots and shouting a few half-hearted oaths about wet toes and colder feet. Others climb down more carefully, lowering themselves over the edge, like men testing the firmness of the world. You're in the second wave, As always, neither first nor last. You swing one leg over brace against the hull and drop into knee-deep water. It shocks the system cold, sudden, uninvited. But you move forward anyway because that's what you came here to do. The sand sucks slightly at your steps, and your breath rises in soft puffs of fog. Around you, the others are spreading out, forming lines, shaking limbs, adjusting shields, and yes, still, adjusting hair. Odvar is already retwisting the end of his beard. Haldor, predictably, is untangling a curl that blew across his face. Even Bjark is crouched behind a rock, trying to fix the side braid that snapped loose during the landing. You watch them with a quiet, calm amusement. You know the feeling. The need for small order before large chaos. You take a moment for yourself. Step behind a low boulder, pull out your comb, and run it once, just once, through the ends of your braid. You know it's tight. You know it's smooth. But the motion settles something in your chest, like tapping a lock to be sure it's closed, like checking a door before sleep. You tuck the comb back into its place at your belt. There's mud on the edge of your cloak, dampness at your hem, but your hair is still right. And for some reason that matters. Thormund appears beside you, armor already glinting under the weak sun. His hair is tied in a crown braid today, tight to his scalp, looped low behind his neck. You try a new style every raid, you say. He shrugs, keeps the stories fresh, or the ghosts are confused. That too. He pauses. Yours looks solid. Doesn't just look solid, you say. It's braided with intent. He grins. That sounds like a motto. You nod. Maybe I'll get it carved into a comb. You fall into step together, moving inland slowly with the others. The terrain here is uneven dunes, broken, driftwood tufts of seagrass still crusted with frost. A few crows lift off ahead of you, startled by the sudden presence of so many boots. The village is still out of sight, but you know it's there just over the ridge. A few smoke trails rise like thin fingers pointing toward the sky. Quiet ones. Breakfast fires. They don't know yet. Or they do, and they're waiting. You tighten your grip on your shield and move toward the edge of a rocky outcrop. The others fan out, keeping low, scanning the land. No signals yet. No horns. Just that strange, echoing calm before the blade falls. Someone nearby coughs, another mutters a prayer. And still, someone is adjusting his hair. This time it's the youngest among you, Shell. Barely 16, his beard is a hopeful rumor more than reality. His braid is decent, but his hands are shaking as he ties it tighter at the base of his neck. You watch him struggle for a moment before stepping closer. Here you say gently, "Let me." He hesitates, pride battling uncertainty, then nods. You kneel behind him and work quickly. The braid is loose at the base. You pull it out slowly and start fresh. His hair is softer than yours, finer, more prone to slipping. You separate it into 3 clean sections and begin weaving tight, consistent, and practical. There you say, tying the end with a strip of leather and patting his shoulder. "Thanks," he says, voice hoarse. "You'll do fine," you tell him. "Keep your feet wide and your mind steady." He nods again and takes his place in the line. That was your 3rd time today helping someone else with their hair. You don't mind, it helps you stay present. The braid is more than just aesthetics. It's a conversation between your fingers and the day ahead. Historians still argue whether Vikings viewed these grooming acts as symbolic, ritualistic, or simply practical. But here now, standing in a briny wind, with a comb tucked beside your blade, you know better. It's all three. Ritual gives the hands something to do when the mind is restless. Practicality keeps the hair out of your eyes when battle begins. And the symbol, that's what everyone else sees. The tightness of your braid, the care in your grooming. It speaks louder than chainmail. You climb a bit higher on the ridge, squinting toward the rooftops that now come into view. Thatched and low, smoke curling from chimneys. Still no movement. The Jarl joins you there. His beard is braided in 2 even cords, silver glinting through the dark. His hair is pulled into a low knot, not for fashion, but for focus. You nod at him, and he nods back. We wait, you ask. He looks at the sky, the trees, the hill, for now. So you wait. And while you do, you feel the wind pick up again. It pulls your cloak sideways and lifts the edge of your braid like a loose flag. You press it back against your collar, smooth it with your palm. It lies flat again. Order restored. Others begin crouching beside rocks, checking weapons and positioning shields. But always, always a few are still tending to their hair. One man ties a ribbon into his braid, whispering the name of a child. Another fastens a carved bead into his beard, shaped like a bear's tooth. A third simply reties a knot. He's retied twice already. Not for looks, not for others, just for him. Because in the next hour, the world will become noise. And right now, these braids are the last word you get to speak before it begins. You crouch low, one knee in the sand, hand resting gently against your belt, fingers brushing the edge of the comb like a secret promise. Let the wind come. Let the tide rise. Let the noise break loose. You are ready. Your mind is calm. Your hair is perfect. The wind shifts again, and this time it brings with it the faint scent of smoke. Real smoke. Not the sleepy kind that drifts from morning hearths, but sharper, drier, touched with ash and pine. The kind of smoke that suggests someone somewhere has noticed you. A crow caws overhead and flaps away toward the tree line. That's usually the last peaceful moment, and you know it. From behind the ridge, Jarl Eric raises one arm steady and slow. The signal. The entire line stills. No one breathes, no one whispers. A quiet, heavier than steel sinks over the beach. You feel your heartbeat rise, not wild, but deep, measured. You do not reach for your weapon, you reach for your braid, a single pass of the hand, down its length, tightening the end, smoothing the sides. This is your armor, too. The first sound comes as an echo of hooves or feet in the distance, or maybe just nerves. Then a call, sharp, human, a voice raised not in welcome. The time has come. You rise with the others, slowly at first, and then with purpose. Your shield slides into position, your axe into your hand. Everything fits where it should. Your braid brushes your collar and stays in place, and you realize this may be the last time you feel it that way. But it doesn't loosen. It holds. You step forward with the group. The ground is firmer here, packed earth, bristling with dry grass and the occasional stone. You move quietly, the entire company advancing like a shadow stretching toward the sun. There is no music, no drum beat, just the scuff of boots and the rustle of cloaks, and beneath it all, a hum almost like the ship's oars, but now inside your own ribs. You glance around. Thormund's hair hasn't moved an inch. Haldor's curls are under control, miraculously. Shell's braid still holds because you tied it. And yours feels heavier now. Like it's gathered the gravity of the moment and woven it into every strand. The houses come into full view, simple structures. Wooden walls, sloped roofs, a few small animal pens, a cart with one broken wheel, the kind of place that doesn't make it onto maps. And yet, here you are, about to become its most memorable morning. There are people. Finally, you see them. Two figures are near the far fence, one running, one frozen in place. Jarl Eric raises his axe. The motion is deliberate, absolute. And then all at once the world erupts. Feet pound the earth. Cloaks fly back. Blades come up like teeth from the dirt. The calm breaks into the storm, and your body becomes its own machine, moving, adjusting, reacting. But your mind, oddly, it stays clear. Your thoughts are strangely mundane, focused, not on glory, not on blood, but on hair. Odvar's braid has completely unraveled. It's flying around his head like a startled eel. You want to shout, "I told you so," but there's no breath for that now. Instead, you press forward, shield, raised braid, tucked just behind your shoulder like a sash. You duck under a low-hanging branch, leap over a narrow ditch. There's a crash of wood to your left, someone's shield meeting a door. A shout behind you, Shell duck. The clash begins. Swords ring against metal. Yells break the morning open like thunder. Somewhere someone slips and swears in Old Norse. The kind of word your grandmother would have banned from dinner. But through it all, you hold fast. You move like you trained to move. Swing, brace, pivot. And your braid gods, your braid is still tight, still smooth. It does not hit your eyes. It does not snag on your collar. It does not betray you. At some point, how long? A minute, 5. The worst passes, you don't know when it turns. Battles are like tides. They rise, they crash, they pull things away. And then they change. You find yourself leaning against a fence post, breath dragging through your teeth. Not hurt, just winded. Around you, the others are catching their breath too. A few are sitting, a few are staring at the sky. And some beautiful fool is already redoing his braid. Seriously, you ask? Haldor grins through a bloody nose. Gotta look good for the saga, right? You shake your head, then reach up and check your own. Still intact, still anchored. You sit for a moment on the edge of a toppled crate and pull your comb from your belt. It's a ritual. You don't even think about it. You comb the ends of your braid just once, just to say you did. Shell collapses beside you, mud on his face, eyes wide. Did it hold? You glance at him. His braid is half untied, but mostly okay. Close enough, you say. He smiles like that's the best compliment he's ever gotten. Thormund limps over braids fully intact. His arm is bruised, his knee bloody, but his hair flawless. I'm putting you in charge of pre-battle styling from now on, he grunts. You laugh. Better than post-battle mending. Someone tosses a water skin across the square. Someone else is gathering loose arrows. No one's shouting anymore. The noise is gone, just aftermath. And everywhere you look, there are braids, some tight, some ruined, some dangling like tired flags. But they're there, signs that before the storm, someone took the time to prepare, to care, to make something beautiful that might not last but still mattered. Historians will one day ask what Viking warriors thought about before battle. Some will say strategy. Some fear, others victory. But you'll know the truth. Some of you were thinking about your hair, and maybe, just maybe, that's why you lived. You don't remember exactly when the world went quiet again. One moment it was shouting and steel, the next it was just wind and the soft creak of burnt wood cooling in the sun. You're still sitting on the edge of the broken crate, comb in hand, watching steam rise from a cracked cooking pot as if it has nothing better to do. Your braid is fine. Maybe a little dust in it, a burr or two clinging to the end. But the structure remains. You run your fingers over it slowly, with a kind of reverence. Not for the braid itself, but for what it represents, that something, anything, stayed whole. Around you, the village is returning to stillness, though not the kind it knew before. Fires still smolder. Doors hang open. Footsteps echo too loudly now in the open square. But there is no more shouting, no more running, just breathing. The heavy, grateful, ragged kind. You look up and spot Haldor helping someone sit upright. The man's hair is bloodied, but still gathered neatly in a side braid. Haldor, of course, immediately starts retightening the loose parts while muttering something about presentation still matters. You can't help but grin. Across the square, a few warriors are already tending to their own heads. It's a strange sight, men battered and bruised, tending not to wounds, but to wisps of loose hair. Thormund is trying to scrape mud from his beard without untying it. Adva, his braid completely unraveled by now, is staring at his reflection in a bucket of water, looking personally offended. "You want help with that?" you call out. He doesn't answer. He just dips the bucket over his head. A bold move, possibly foolish. You hear a faint choking sound. Seaweed. He coughs. You stand, stretch, and walk over to him, pulling the spare comb from your belt. He slumps down on a step near a collapsed wall, dripping and defeated. "Turn," you say. He obeys. You begin detangling the mess, slowly, gently. The comb catches at the ends, salt, sweat, and probably soup. You ignore it. You work section by section until something resembling order returns. "You're good at this," he says, not looking back. "Better than I am with words you admit. Better than you were with your first braid," he adds. You flick his ear gently. That was a design choice. You finish the braid, tie it with a clean strip of leather from your pouch, and pat his shoulder. He exhales deeply, like something heavy has just let go. You sit beside him for a moment. The wind picks up, fluttering the edge of your braid against your neck again. It's quieter now, not tugging, just playing. You think back to this morning. The longhouse, the warmth, the smell of porridge and cedar oil, your comb moving through your hair in the half-dark. It feels like a memory from years ago, not ours. But the same braid still rests on your shoulder, still holding. Someone calls your name. You glance up and see Hrolf waving. He looks different now, not younger, older, not from wounds, but from experience. He points to his braid. Still tight, he says. You nod. Good hands tied that. He grins and walks off with a bit more weight in his step. Jarl Erik emerges from behind what's left of the storage hut. His cloak is singed, and his beard has a smear of ash running down the braid. But the braids are still there. Still identical. Still impossibly neat. He surveys the square eyes moving slowly, methodically. Then he gestures for the others to gather. You rise and join them. There's no speech. Just a few words about moving supplies, setting watch, and clearing space to sleep. Practical things. But before the group breaks up, Erik looks over the men one by one, and his eyes settle on you for a moment. His gaze drops briefly to the comb at your belt, then to your braid. He nods once. It's enough. You return to the small patch of shade where your gear waits. You sit again cross-legged this time, and take out the cloth you used to clean your comb. You begin wiping it slowly, carefully, getting rid of dust, ash, maybe blood. You don't look too hard at the stains. The comb is fine. A little nicked at the edge now, but still solid. It's been through worse. You think about the stories they'll tell after this. The raid, the fire, the skirmish near the fence. Will they mention the hair? Probably not. But in those quiet moments between tales, when the voices get low and the fire crackles louder than the words, someone will lean back a smile and say, and his braid, not a strand out of place. And that's enough. Historians may wonder about this someday. They'll dig up combs and guess. They'll write footnotes and debates and half-confident essays, but they won't know what it felt like to carry something clean into something brutal, to find comfort in a single straight part, to feel the wind test you and find you ready. You'll know. And when the day ends and the gear is cleaned and the food is passed around in bowls of wood and silence, you'll unfasten your braids slowly. Let the strands fall free. Let the weight of the morning slip through your fingers, but not yet. For now, the braid stays. For now, the comb waits at your side. For now, your hair is still perfect, and that somehow feels like victory. The morning mist clings to your sleeves like a hesitant farewell. It's the kind of damp that seeps through wool and bone even under a good cloak. Around you, the camp hums with slow-moving life. Someone stoking embers, someone yawning into a fist, and someone else squinting at a pot of cold porridge, as if it personally betrayed him. But you're on a mission. And it starts, of course, with a comb. You squat beside your satchel and unfasten the leather thong that keeps your possessions from escaping in the night. Your fingers find it immediately smooth antler warm from the residual heat of the sheepskin pouch. The carved teeth are still intact, though one has a tiny notch at the tip. It doesn't matter. It's yours. Combs in your world aren't just tools. They're conversation starters, memory holders, and more often than not, currency. This morning, as luck would have it, you're not the only one thinking of a trade. Kjartan appears beside you like a shadow with shoes. He's chewing something tough, probably yesterday's dried trout, and eyeing you like a cat eyeing a string. That comb of yours, he says. Still got that double row on one side. You nod without looking up, while he scratches behind his ear. There's a trader on the eastern ridge, sells pine tar bear grease and smoked whale heart. You pause. Whale heart? He nods solemnly. With juniper glaze, you raise an eyebrow. What's the catch? He wants a comb, not just any comb, a clean one. You look down at yours. It's clean enough. You've oiled it with flax and beeswax. The handle's still smooth, and the carved spiral at the base catches the light in a way that makes it look vaguely magical, especially if you squint. Kjartan sees your hesitation and ups the ante. I'll throw in my iron sewing needle, he says. Still sharp, still cursed. You sigh. Fine. But I want a bite of that whale heart. Deal. The trade happens quick. Your comb for his promise. His needle for your skepticism. By mid-morning, you're chewing a chunk of something salty, chewy, and surprisingly floral. You're not convinced it's the whale, but you're also not convinced it isn't. Later, back at your log seat near the stream, you watch a trio of young warriors arguing over braiding rights. One's got a comb carved from driftwood, another a rough piece of horn with teeth like a broken rake. The third has no comb at all and is trying to untangle his braid using 2 fingers in a look of pure panic. You can't help but laugh. Once long ago, you were that third boy standing in the shadow of older warriors clutching a tangle of ambition and knotweed, praying someone would notice and help. That someone was your aunt, a warrior in her own right who fought more battles with words and winks than with steel. She gave you your first comb, told you to carry it like a blade, clean, sharp, and never borrowed. You miss her more than you let on. As the sun climbs, you spot Hilda, one of the camp's weavers, setting up her spindle beside a tree. She has a row of combs laid out on a cloth birch, ash ivory bone. Some plain, others etched with runes or inlaid with bits of glass. You walk over, trade you ask. She eyes you. For what? You offer the whale heart needle. She snorts, half a comb. You smile. A story, then. She pauses. Go on. So you tell her about the time your cousin braided your hair too tightly before a feast. And halfway through your second ale horn, you passed out from scalp pain and landed face first in a bowl of pickled turnips. She laughs loud, clear, and just a little mean. Fair enough, she says, handing you a comb made of horn, burnished to a soft glow. You take it, turn it in your palm. It fits. Nearby, 2 children wrestle over a pine cone. One is winning, the other is loud. Neither has noticed the dog sneaking up behind them to steal the prize. You watch it unfold with mild interest. Then you hear a voice. You planning to use that? Or just admire it? It's your brother. He's sitting cross-legged on a log, holding his own comb like a dagger. You join him. Wordlessly, you both begin the daily ritual parting, separating, aligning, combing as if your ancestors are watching and knowing them, they probably are. Remember when we thought warriors didn't care about hair, he asks. You smirk. We were idiots. He nods. Still are. You finish your braid first. He always takes longer, says it's because he has more hair, but really it's because he's meticulous. Each strand must fall just right, like tiles on a roof, like soldiers in formation. Historians still debate the role of combs in Viking social status. Some say it was all about cleanliness, lice being the mortal enemy of civilization. Others suggest it was spiritual. A well-kept appearance was an offering to the gods. Then there's the theory that combs served as social markers. More combs, better craftsmanship, higher prestige. But you don't need a theory. You've lived it. When someone offers you their comb, they're offering trust. When they keep it close, they're guarding power. You've seen men weep over lost combs. You've seen fights break out over stolen ones. And once, memorably, you watched a wedding dissolve because the groom forgot his bride's favorite braid bead. Some tools shape battlefields. Others shape memories. You run your fingers along the horn comb's spine. The ridges remind you of sea waves, the kind you stared at for hours on longships, wondering if the next would be the one that broke you. It never was. The stream beside you gurgles, gently echoing a lullaby you haven't heard since childhood. The same one your mother hummed as she untangled your hair after a day of wrestling goats and losing. You hum it now absent-mindedly. Your brother joins in, and for a moment, just a moment, the world feels combed too. Tidy, rhythmic, intentional. You're squatting on a flat stone near the riverbank, elbows resting on your knees, eyes squinting into the sun. The air smells of damp wool, thawing earth, and something herbal from the pile of trimmings at your side. Juniper needles, maybe, or whatever. Hilda slipped into the rinse water this morning. Today, you're trimming the ends. Not the ceremonial kind, not the precise symmetry your sister insists on for festivals. No, this is maintenance, a practical moment, a quiet moment. You call it scaring away the winter ends, like snipping dead leaves from a plant. Your comb, a familiar piece of polished antler, rests across your palm. Its teeth are uneven now from years of use, but you swear that makes it gentler, less aggressive, less judgy. The bronze shard you're using as a mirror rests against a chunk of firewood, angled just enough to catch your reflection if you tilt your head just so. It doesn't show everything, but enough. Enough to see the split ends and the stubborn lock near your left temple that always grows sideways like a confused blade of grass. You take the comb and drag it slowly through the strands. Not hurried, not careless, just steady. With each pass, your fingers follow, searching, separating, checking texture. This is your routine. And if it takes the better part of an hour, so be it. From behind, boots crunch in the dirt. A familiar sound. Eric again. Still at it, he says, flopping down beside you with the grace of a dropped potato sack. Still uneven, you reply. He grins and tosses you a sliver of dried apple. You know, I once heard that Odin refused to bless a warrior whose beard resembled an uprooted bush. Then thank the gods I don't worship Odin. You both laugh. It's quiet. The river adds commentary in the background, gurgling gently over smooth stones. Today, there are only 3 of you. Eric yourself, and Kari the shield maiden, with the unnervingly sharp cheekbones. She's tying tiny copper rings into the ends of her braids, muttering something under her breath. That might be a battle charm, or a complaint about squirrels. The 3 of you fall into a rhythm. Someone coughs, someone chuckles, someone mutters, "Do you think split ends affect aim with a spear?" It's ridiculous, but that's the point. You remember a younger you, one who thought grooming was for nobles and cowards. Real warriors didn't care what their hair looked like as long as they could swing an axe. That same you had once gone 2 weeks without a comb, only to find your hair so knotted that it took your brother an hour to untangle, during which he recited every embarrassing thing you'd ever done since childhood. You never skipped a grooming session again. Some people think we were savages, Eric says, examining a nick on his comb. But I think we were just precise. Historians still argue whether Norse grooming was symbolic or survival-based. Some say the combs and plaits were meant for ceremony, others that they were simply practical in cold weather and close combat. Maybe both. What's undeniable is this combs are everywhere in Viking graves. In pouches, under pillows, tucked into boots. Sometimes more than one. A man might forget his helmet, but never his comb. You gently snip another strand, letting it float down into the pile at your feet. The bronze shard shifts in the sunlight. For a moment, you see yourself as someone else might. A warrior, yes, but also a caretaker. Of self, of ritual, of community. Because this little ritual isn't about appearance, it's about readiness. You once heard a skald say, "The man who knows his own reflection fears no enemy." You didn't understand it then. You think you do now. A small gust of wind flutters through the clearing, lifting some of the trimmed hairs like dandelion fluff. Kari catches one and holds it up. "This one looks cursed," she says. "Probably yours." You take it, place it carefully into the fire pit ash, and say with mock solemnity, "May it find peace in the afterlife." It's silly, but it's also a ceremony. And that matters. You remember the tales, the saga of the warrior who never lost a battle until the day he went unbraided. The story of the comb carved from whalebone that predicted storms by changing color. None of it's proven. But stories have power when whispered during moments like these. Eric finishes his trimming and leans back, hands behind his head. "You ever think we'll be remembered?" he asks. "Only if someone finds our combs," you say, "and if they do, they'll say we were clean." You both laugh. It echoes off the rocks and drifts across the water. By now, the sun is lower. The light softens, turns the edges golden. You tuck away your tools with a gentle reverence. Each piece fits into its pouch with the precision of habit, like armor, like prayer. Kari brushes her braids one last time and murmurs, "Ready." No one says where you're going. You don't need to. This was never just about grooming. It was about presence. About control over the small things when the big ones like war weather and fate feel so wildly unpredictable. You sling your satchel over your shoulder and head down the trail, boots soft on the mossy path. The sound of the river fades behind you. The warmth of the grooming circle lingers like sun on skin and your hair. It holds just enough scent of pine and smoke to remind you that you are, at least today, someone worth remembering. You rise early again. The wind has shifted overnight, leaving a strange calm over the camp. No frost this time, but everything is damp, as if the sky decided to sigh quietly on everything instead of raining. Your breath still shows in little ghosts as you move around preparing for the day's march. But before anything else, before breakfast, before checking your gear, you reach for your comb. Your braid held overnight, more or less, but the wind has tangled the ends into little knots. You sit on a flat stone just beyond the fire ring, the warmth of last night's ashes ghosting against your ankles. You begin working the comb through, slowly wincing once or twice. Someone whistles behind you. It's Bjorn. Tall, serious, rarely seen without a spear or a song. He squats beside you and pulls out his own ivory comb carved with two wolves at the top. He says nothing, just begins his morning grooming like it's a sacred ritual, which in a way it is. In the distance, others are doing the same. A dozen warriors, each with their own method, some using tree sap to smooth things down, some twisting sections into impossibly elaborate knots. One man even rubs salt water into his scalp, muttering about ocean strength. You suspect he's just trying to keep lice at bay. There's a kind of quiet camaraderie to this scene. Men sitting in clusters, fixing one another's braids, sharing combs, laughing at yesterday's blunders. You hear a younger warrior curse softly as he discovers a bird feather stuck in his hair from sleeping too close to the chicken pen. One man has no hair at all, bald since 30, but he still carries a comb, uses it on his beard, swears it keeps him connected to his ancestors. At this moment, the quiet grooming before a day of action feels oddly tender, like the stillness before a great painting begins. It's not vanity and it's not mere habit. It's readiness, and everyone in their own quiet way is preparing. You glance down at your comb. The teeth are worn from years of use, and some are slightly crooked now, but it still works. You wonder idly what it would fetch in a trade. Then you think of the day you carved it with your uncle seated on a fishing dock, both of you laughing every time the knife slipped. Worth more than silver. Nearby, someone complains about helmet hair again. You smirk. It's become a running joke how the sturdy iron helmets flatten all that careful grooming into a sweaty mess within minutes. But everyone still grooms anyway. Not because it will hold, but because of what it means. Historians still debate whether Vikings truly brushed their hair daily, or if that's a modern fantasy stitched together by saga embellishments and museum displays. But the bones and grave goods say something different. Combs are everywhere in burials, in rivers and trash heaps. So either Vikings were very forgetful with their grooming tools, or very dedicated. One curious tale even suggests Viking warriors would delay battle to finish braiding. If a braid came undone mid-fight, it was seen as a bad omen. Others say a warrior's braid was like a warrior's oath kept tight until the day he fell. No one knows for sure, but the stories stick. You finish your braid and feel taller, sharper, more aligned, like your hair has snapped the rest of you into place. Bjorn grunts approvingly. You won't scare the goats now. You grin. Good. Last time they nearly trampled my lunch. The two of you walk toward the supply carts where food is being portioned, dried fish barley cakes, and something that vaguely resembles cheese. The smell alone wakes your appetite. As you eat, you notice Carrie again. Her braid today is wrapped in leather cord, decorated with tiny bronze rings. Battle braid. Serious braid. The kind of braid that says, "I'm not here to negotiate." You glance down at your own. It's simpler, functional. But suddenly you're wondering if a little cord might help. Later, as the sun climbs and the camp begins to stir with packing, you see Freydis again? Yes, that Freydis. Freydis, the weaver who once rebuilt your entire braid in a single sigh. She's packing herbs into pouches now, humming under her breath. You catch her eye and gesture to your hair. She squints, then nods once. Acceptable. High praise. On the road again, longships ahead, your hair tucked neatly under a fur-lined cap. The wind tugging gently at loose strands, you feel ready. Not for war, not even for glory, just ready to walk, to think, to exist in this strange, cold world where even the simple act of brushing hair feels like an act of culture, of memory, of defiance. And behind you, as the line of warriors moves forward, the faint sound of someone, maybe young Einar, muttering to himself, tight braid, calm head, sharp axe. You rise before the others. Again. The morning air is soft and cold, hanging over the camp like a woolen cloak, just barely damp from fog. It doesn't smell like fire yet, just soil pine and the faint metallic scent of dew settling on old weapons. Your breath forms a pale ghost in front of you, drifting upward before fading into the mist. You run a hand over your braid, still tight, still there. It's a small thing, but it anchors you. The knot at the end feels like punctuation. This is who you are, and today you'll remember. Around the camp, sleeping shapes stir slowly beneath fur blankets. You hear the first sniffles of the day, a muffled cough, the sound of someone scratching at their beard, like it's an old riddle they haven't quite solved. A pot clinks faintly as someone shifts it in their sleep. The day hasn't begun, not really, but it's close. And then you hear it, the scratch of a comb against hair. It's Astrid. She's perched on a rock, long hair already loosened from sleep. And in her hand is a comb carved from an antler, its teeth stained darker at the ends from years of use. She moves slowly, rhythmically, like she's brushing not just knots from hair, but thoughts from her mind. You sit beside her without saying anything. She nods, just barely. You both understand the sacredness of the early hour. The Vikings were not a people who rushed through the morning. Despite their reputation for thunder and raids, the start of the day often looked like this slow, deliberate communal. Hairbrushing wasn't just vanity. It was habit, order, and pride. From behind, you hear someone whisper, "Should I do the side braid or the wrap today?" Another voice answers, groggy but confident. Side braid makes you look like you've already survived something. The conversation drifts off again. You remember when you first arrived in camp years ago now. Your hair was wild. Not wild in the flattering, free-spirited way. Wild like it hadn't met soap in months and had no concept of direction. Freitas had taken one look at you and said, "We'll fix that before breakfast." She'd braided your hair with the speed of someone solving a puzzle they've already finished a dozen times. And it wasn't just about tidiness. It was about unity. Warriors who fought together often looked alike, from the same iron studs in their cloaks to the way their braids fell over one shoulder or tucked behind armor. "Hair is memory," one of the elders once said. "It grows in silence. It remembers every year we forget." This morning you believe that more than usual. Nearby, someone begins humming. It's a tune without words, old enough to feel like it was born from the fjords themselves. The kind of tune that helps braids form faster, straighter. You start brushing your own hair with a comb that Freitas once gave you. Bones smooth with a tiny raven carved near the handle. She said it was for luck. You're not superstitious exactly, but it's seen you through storms, sickness, and two very bad decisions involving sour mead and a fire juggling contest. As you brush, you watch the others begin their quiet rituals. One oils his beard carefully, avoiding the scar near his chin. Another sharpens a hairpin, as if preparing it for battle. Someone else, half asleep, has one eye open and is already trying to decide whether to rebraid or simply tuck everything under a cap and call it windblown intimidation. You braid slowly today, not because you're tired, but because it feels important to take your time. The weave you choose isn't complicated, but it's yours. A few strands of gray now run through the braid, and you leave them there. Let them show. As you work, you think of the old combs archaeologists would one day find. The ones made of bone and wood carried in leather pouches or tucked into belts. Combs weren't just grooming tools. They were symbols of rank, of presence, of care. Viking graves, even humble ones, often included a comb. It said this person mattered. This person belonged to the world of hands and hair and self-respect. Historians still debate whether elaborate hairstyles held deeper ceremonial meaning or whether they were simply a reflection of daily discipline. Some believe warriors wore specific braids to signal rank or allegiance. Others argue it was personal preference, or perhaps even romantic, offering a braid to a loved one before battle, like a quiet promise to return. Either way, you know this much: brushing hair before battle or before breakfast has a kind of magic to it. The sky's a little more now. A gull cries in the distance. Someone knocks over a bucket and curses gently, as if afraid to disturb the spell of morning. Then Bjorn, as always, breaks the silence. Do we raid first or eat first? A general murmur of eat follows. One voice yells braid first to scattered laughter. As the camp wakes fully, you secure your braid with a simple knot, then tuck it neatly into your tunic. You stand stretch and feel the slight tug of the braid down your back, a soft reminder that you are real, grounded, and ready. It's time to move, but you'll carry the quiet of this morning with you, tucked inside your hair like a secret. Breakfast begins the way most good things do, quietly, with steam curling from a wooden bowl and a faint grunt of satisfaction from someone whose beard has more oats than dignity. You cradle your bowl like it's a sacred relic. It's not. It's just warm. But that's enough. The porridge is thick today, barley, a few bits of dried apple, maybe even a trace of last week's elk jerky. You're not asking, you're just chewing, slowly, deliberately. Because in a Viking camp, eating fast is how you end up choking in front of your enemies and becoming a campfire story no one tells with respect. You sit on a mossy stump near the edge of the clearing. Around you, others settle in similar spots: rock perches, rolled up cloaks, anything that lifts them slightly off the damp earth. There's no dining protocol here. Whoever gets to the food first wins. It's not survival of the fittest. It's survival of the most alert. Across from you, someone drops their bowl and swears gently. The dog that's always hungry snatches up the contents in 2 chomps and trots away like a furry warlord. Nobody's mad. That's just breakfast law. A young warrior named Freyja slumps beside you. She's still half asleep, her hair in a wild halo that makes her look like a lion who lost a fight with a thorn bush. Did we brush before battle, she mumbles, or is the porridge doing the fighting today? You chuckle and hand her your extra hair tie, both, but one's more edible. The fire crackles beside you. Someone throws on a handful of herbs, not for flavor, just for the smell. Mint, maybe. Or something pretending to be mint. The steam that rises is oddly comforting. A pause, a reset, a breath before the day kicks its boots on. You spoon the last of your porridge into your mouth and nod with satisfaction. It's good. Not feast hall good. Not grandmother's secret recipe is good. Just warm filling and oddly grounding. Exactly what you need. When you know the next few hours might involve sharp metal and loud yelling. Behind you, someone starts singing a drinking song in a voice that sounds like gravel rolling downhill. It's not good singing, but it's enthusiastic. Others join in. The lyrics change halfway through, as they always do, and somehow the refrain becomes about goats. Again. You rinse your bowl in the stream that cuts through camp. The water is biting cold, and your fingers ache after 2 seconds, but it wakes you up better than any chant. A raven hops nearby, eyes you curiously, then caws once and flies off, probably to judge another camp. As you walk back, you pass the weapons row spears, stacked like kindling shields, lined like sleeping turtles. You touch one. The wood is scarred, but solid. The metal rim bears a faint nick you remember from last week's skirmish. You told yourself you'd sand it smooth. You didn't. A few people are sparring lightly in a clearing. It's more dance than dual movement, slow and deliberate. Not to win, just to remember. Memory lives in muscle, and Vikings train, like they're practicing a story they'll have to tell with their hands. Astrid is there, of course. Her braids are impossibly neat. You'd think she combs them with discipline itself. She nods at you, but doesn't break rhythm. Her feet move like tidewater, smooth, patient, unstoppable. You pass her and walk toward the longhouse. The structure looms like a sleeping beast, sloped, roof smoke curling from the vents, and the faint clatter of gear being arranged inside. You duck under the doorway, careful not to knock your forehead again. The bruise from yesterday is still fresh. Inside, it's dim, but warm. A few elders sit near the hearth sipping broth, watching the younger ones, like cats watching birds. You nod to them, and one raises a brow. Hair still tight, he asks. You grin. Tighter than my belt. Good, he says. Loose braids, loose fate. You're not entirely sure what that means, but you nod respectfully and back away. You check your own gear leather fastenings, blade, edge, and the small pouch of dried berries someone insisted would bring good luck. You believe in luck, just not loudly. Quiet luck is more reliable. Outside, the camp begins to stir more forcefully. Voices rise. Feet stamp. The dog is barking at a squirrel. The squirrel understandably looks terrified. You sit on a log and begin the most important ritual of all, rebraiding your hair. It's not just vanity. It's focus. Every twist, every loop is a reminder you are here. You are ready. You are bound together, not just by hair, but by intention. Other fighters watch and do the same. A few struggle. Some are all thumbs and curses. Others treat their braiding like art. One person uses a fishbone as a comb. Bold, possibly unsanitary, certainly memorable. The camp's mood tightens as the sky begins to change. It goes from lazy gray to something more silver, more alert. Birds quiet, wind picks up. You sense the invisible shift that comes before action, not fear exactly, but awareness. The way a forest knows before a storm. Ulf, the war leader, reappears near the center fire. He says nothing at first, just stands, waiting. His presence alone draws silence like gravity. Then he speaks. We don't fight to die. We fight to remember. To remind the world we were here, and to come back and laugh about it. Someone yells, with all our limbs, please. Laughter breaks the tension like a dropped mug. Ulf smiles. Yes, all limbs, most teeth, And no one forgets to brush tonight. You stand, bowl clean, hair tight, heart steady. You are not fearless. That would be foolish, but you are ready. And sometimes that's the same thing. You're not sure who started the tradition, but tonight, like most nights before a raid, there's a gentle hush over the longhouse, broken only by the soft sounds of grooming. Yes, grooming. The smell of spruce and something faintly fermented lingers in the air, mixing with damp wool and the smoky perfume of the hearth. It's oddly calming. You're sitting cross-legged by the fire pit, a wooden comb in one hand and your hair in the other, trying to separate the knots from the braids and the burrs from yesterday's adventure in the woods. There's a pine cone lodged near the back of your head. You're not asking how it got there. Across from you, someone's pouring hot water into a basin filled with dried herbs. Steam rises. Another Viking leans over the bowl and exhales like it's a sacred ritual. Maybe it is. Maybe everything becomes sacred when you could be dead by sunrise. Combing your hair, you've learned, is an exercise in both patience and identity. The comb you're holding is carved from antlers and shaped like a bird. It's not just a tool, it's a symbol. Viking combs, after all, are among the most common artifacts found in burial sites across Scandinavia. Some are elaborately carved, others are simple, but the message remains. Appearance matters even in the afterlife. You tug gently, working through the tangles with grim determination. Nearby, a girl no older than 10 is weaving a ribbon into her braid tongue, poking out the side of her mouth in concentration. You exchange a solemn nod. The braid is a rite. A young man walks past, carrying a small mirror, yes, a mirror. Polished bronze, slightly warped, but effective. He pauses, adjusts a braid behind his ear, and continues. Vikings didn't just brush for battle, they preened. You think of the sagas. The great tales of blood and conquest rarely mention that someone probably paused mid-murder to fix a loose lock of hair. But the archaeology tells another story. Tweezers, ear spoons, nail cleaners, even beard straighteners if you count heating a blade and pressing it just so. Cleanliness was not only practical, it was prideful. Of course, not everyone approves. Your uncle old enough to be twice grump, I says it's vanity. But you saw him last week, polishing his boots with goose fat and muttering about the shine. So a rooster crows for no reason. The chickens, sensing this, maybe about them, shuffle closer to the firelight. You swat one away with your comb. It leaves indignantly. You pause your brushing to look outside. The sun is still clinging to the horizon, a long golden smear above the trees. Someone's chopping wood in rhythmic bursts. A child chases another, with a stick yelling something about sea monsters. You breathe in. Tonight feels like a pause before something, which historically speaking it is. Vikings often prepared for raids, not with howling speeches or wild drinking, but with quiet rituals, bathing, combing, and choosing their best tunic. Looking death in the eye is easier when your braids are even. You return to the comb. A few stubborn knots remain. You dip your fingers in the herb water, warm, slightly oily herb water, and work it through. It helps. Beside you, someone starts playing a jaw harp. The soft twang adds a rhythm to your strokes. You hum along absent-mindedly and smile. The others don't look at you, but they hear. In Viking culture, communal sound was a kind of comfort. Even the whetstone had a rhythm. Now comes the styling. You part your hair down the middle, neatly, like you were taught. one braid, then two. Then you wrap them like a crown and pin them with bone needles. You add a tiny carved bead of walrus ivory, polished smooth. It catches the light. You look ready, not just for battle, but for being remembered. A nearby warrior, Eric, or maybe Bjorn, taps you on the shoulder. He's got soot on his face and something that might be honey in his beard. Straight, he asks, turning slightly, so you can inspect the back of his head. You nod. He grins and returns to oiling his axe. You think not for the first time how strange and lovely this all is. The stories always talk about the violence, the raids, the fire. But no one ever sings about the quiet brushing of hair, the way you can fall into a rhythm with your hands, the intimacy of untangling someone else's knots. There's a warmth to it, a humility. You finish the final twist of your braid. It sits tight against your scalp, held firm by combs and muscle memory. You exhale, done. A girl walks by holding a bowl of ashes and lavender. She sprinkles a bit over your shoulder, blessing or joke you're not sure. But the scent follows her like a ghost. You watch the others, a man sharpening a blade, while his daughter polishes her boots, two women laughing as they smear berry dye on their cheeks, a boy holding out his hand for approval after finally managing a double braid. In a corner, an elder carefully wraps a leather cord around his wrist. For luck, or remembrance. He doesn't say which. Historians still debate whether grooming in Viking culture was purely about presentation, or if it had spiritual weight. Some argue it was just practical. Clean hair means fewer lice means better morale. Others say it was a symbolic order before chaos, beauty, before bloodshed. You think maybe it's both. You look at your reflection in the bronze cup beside you. It's warped, but enough. You see yourself tired, wind-chapped, braided. You look like someone who belongs, someone ready, someone real. You rise. You place your comb back into your pouch, wrap your cloak over your shoulders, and step outside. The sky is bluer now, stretched wide like a drum. Smoke curls from the longhouse roof. Somewhere, someone has started a low chant. You don't join in. You just stand there, letting the wind catch your braid, the scent of spruce and salt curling around you. And for a moment, before the noise, before the oars hit water, before the storm of whatever comes next, you feel perfectly still. Hair brushed, heart steady, ready. The boat waits for you like it always has, quietly, without fanfare. It sits half-shadowed in the inlet's shallows, its dark wooden ribs slick with salt and thyme. You approach it slowly, not out of fear, but reverence. Because today is the day you leave land behind. The sky is the color of old wool gray, with streaks of silver light breaking through the clouds like uncertain promises. There's a chill in the air, not harsh, but the kind that seeps into your collar and whispers, "Are you ready?" Your boots squelch softly against the mud bank, each step leaving behind a print that the tide will erase within the hour. That's always the deal with the sea. It gives, it takes, and it forgets. You've learned not to expect gratitude from water. Around you, others are preparing in the same quiet rhythm. One man is talking to his shield again. He's scratched a face into the wood, 2 dots, and a crooked line for a mouth. It looks more startled than fierce, but he likes it that way. Says it scares off sea spirits. You don't argue. Another is fixing a goose feather to his axe handle with twine. Not for balance, not for show. It sings, he says, every time I raise it. You raise your eyebrows but say nothing. It's not your place to ruin his magic. You reach your spot, third seat, from the bow port side. That's your place. Always has been. Your oar rests beside it, old but steady. You carved your initials into the handle when you were 15, and now they've smoothed into the wood like a secret only your fingers remember. Before sitting, you pause to check your braid. Still tight, still centered. You run a comb once through the back, just for ritual. You've brushed your hair before, every voyage, every raid, every crossing. It's not vanity, it's anchoring. As if untangling your hair untangles your mind. Historians still argue whether Vikings really cared this much about grooming. Some say the combs and tweezers found in graves were status symbols like jewelry. Others argue they were everyday tools used with care. You don't need historians to tell you your comb has teeth worn smooth by years of use, and that's all the evidence you need. The elder walks down the shoreline, now placing a hand on each shoulder. No speech, just pressure, just presence. When he reaches you, he pauses. Look at the braid. Nods once. You nod back. That's your blessing. The wind shifts. It brings with it the smell of kelp-wet rope and something metallic anticipation, perhaps. You sip from the shared cup of mead passed down the row. It's thick and smoky today, as if the brewer had burned the honey on purpose. It tastes like nervous laughter and half-remembered songs. You sit. The bench creaks familiarly under your weight, and the boat rocks just a little as others board. A few splashes more than they should, earning them a look from the stern. But mostly, it's quiet, peaceful even. Then, without command, someone begins to hum. A low, rumbling melody you've all heard since you were too small to row. You hum too. Not because you want to, but because your mouth just knows where to go. Your fingers wrap around the oar handle. The wood is cold, worn smooth by time, stained dark with salt and stories. You trace the initials again. The tide rises slowly now. It tickles the boat's belly, then begins to lift. Just a little, just enough. In the distance, a gull cries, then another. The mist begins to gather, rolling across the water like a secret. Someone mutters about fog spirits. Someone else laughs just once. And then the drum sounds. Once, twice, a third time. You row. The oar dips into the water with a satisfying thunk. You pull. The muscles in your back remember exactly what to do. So do your shoulders, your wrists, your breath. The boat moves, so do you. The village slips away behind you, just rooftops and smoke, now then less, then nothing. Someone waves, you don't know who. You wave back anyway. The rhythm builds, oars slicing shoulders, rocking the boat, surging forward, like a creature finally released. No one shouts, no one needs to. Scholars debate whether Viking raids began with prayers or silence. Some argue there were chants to Odin, to Frey, to Njord. Others say it was all business. But in this boat right now, there is only one chant, the sound of rowing. Salt spray kisses your cheek. The chill is sharper now, but welcome. You adjust your grip. Tighten your braid again. Habit mostly. To your left, a man has closed his eyes. He rows by feel alone. You do the same just for a moment. And in the darkness behind your lids, you see more than water. You see the journey. The coast will vanish soon. Then the sea will widen, stretch out like an endless sheet. The stars will guide you when they appear. For now, it's enough to move forward. The mist is thicker now, curling through the gaps between shoulders like fingers. The man in front of you mutters a verse about sea giants and their terrible hair. You grin. It's not far from the truth. They say Viking warriors feared tangling their hair in battle. It was considered bad luck. That's why the knots matter. The oils, the combs. It's not just hygiene, it's armor. Your thoughts drift to your goat, to your sister's wedding next spring, to the old woman who braided your hair this morning and told you to come back with more than stories. You hope to return, but for now you row. The sea does not care what you carry. It only asks that you move. And so you do. You lose track of time out here. That's how the sea works. It peels away your sense of hours and replaces it with something older. Something measured not by sun or shadow, but by muscle and breath. Pull, exhale, pull, exhale. The world becomes narrower, simpler. You row, the boat moves. The mist thickens, the drum has stopped now. Not because the journey is over, but because you no longer need it. The rhythm lives in your bones. One of the younger rowers, perhaps 14, is still slightly offbeat, but no one corrects him. He'll learn. That's how you did. You glance to your right, your reflection flickers on the water half visible between waves. Hair is still tidy. A few strands have escaped the braid, but they curl around your face like seaweed, soft and damp. You don't bother fixing them. There's something comforting about being slightly undone. A faint squawk overhead draws your gaze. A gull again, or maybe something stranger. Someone claims to have seen a sea eagle last time, wingspan wider than the boat, eyes like embers. Someone else swore it winked at him. You never saw it, but you enjoy the thought of a bird with a sense of humor. The wind grows curious. It nosed around the boat, lifting corners of cloaks, tousling beards, playing with the ends of your hair like a bored child. The sail is furled. Of course, rowing builds discipline, and the elder says, discipline builds victory. Still, you imagine the wind might enjoy a good nap in the canvas if it were allowed. Ahead, the horizon begins to sharpen. A darker smudge in the distance hints at land or cloud or both. You know better than to guess. What looks like shoreline often turns out to be nothing more than a trick of waves and longing. Beside you, the man with the feathered axe has started whispering to it again. Soon he murmurs, as though the blade were a friend from childhood. He touches his beard 3 times, taps the feather once. A ritual. Yours is simpler. You reach into the pouch at your waist and touch the small mirror there, polished bronze worn to the shape of your thumb. Not to check your face, just to remember you're still here. The sky, meanwhile, is doing its usual Viking thing, pretending it won't rain, even as it prepares to. The clouds roll in slowly, like wool unraveling. Somewhere behind them, the sun sulks. That's all right. You're used to its mood swings. Then comes the scent of wet moss peat and a distant fire, land. Real this time, the boat stirs. Not literally, it's still a wooden thing, but everyone feels it. Back straighten, eyes narrow. You pull a little harder. Not out of urgency, just ceremony. Historians still argue whether Vikings sang when they landed. Some say yes, that there were verses about spears and sea dragons shouted into the wind. Others insist it was done in silence with the seriousness of planting crops. You believe both. Sometimes you hum, sometimes you don't. Today, the boat hums for you. It kisses the shore with a bump, a kiss with teeth. Sand grinds against the hull pebbles, clack like bones under the keel. You rise slowly, joints complaining. The first step onto land feels like betrayal. Your legs wobble, unsure whether they still belong to you. They'll remember. You lift your pack, nothing fancy. Comb mirror a handful of salted barley cakes and your shaving blade. You've never used it for battle. But once in an emergency, it carved a roast duck with surprising dignity. The others disembark with similar grace, by which you mean none. One slips and lands on his backside. Another swears he's stepped on a sea ghost. But eventually, all are standing. Muddy, wind-chapped, vaguely heroic. You help secure the boat, tying the ropes to a crooked tree that leans like it's trying to eavesdrop. The bark is smooth, oddly warm. You pat it because why not? You think it too. You don't expect a reply. Then ritual time. Not the kind with altars or goat sacrifices. Just one last moment to brush your hair. One last tug of the braid. One last smooth stroke of the comb, like saying, "Yes, I remember who I am. You aren't here to conquer. Not today. Today is scouting, mapping, perhaps a trade, perhaps a song. You're not sure. The elder is the only one who truly knows, and he isn't saying, but your presence is enough. You walk inland now. The grass underfoot is springy, filled with tiny yellow flowers that smell like onions and sunshine. Someone behind you sneezes. Another says it's a sign of good luck. You pretend not to roll your eyes. The path ahead winds through rocks and low trees. Somewhere in the distance, a herd of sheep bleats like badly tuned flutes. You smile, they'll know soon enough that strangers have come. But for now, you walk. Each step feels softer, not because of the grass, because of the slowing, the unwinding, the letting go. You've landed. And now you breathe deeply, slowly. The tension in your shoulders loosens. The sea's roar is behind you now, reduced to a hush. The wind, though still curious, has grown gentler. It brushes your cheek like a hand, saying, "Rest now." Your eyes trace the horizon, not for enemies, not for shelter, just for the shape of it. The way it curves, the way it seems to hold the sky in its arms. You hear a bird, low and content. You don't look for it. You just let the sound be. The weight of the day doesn't press, it settles. Like a warm blanket pulled up just under the chin. Your heartbeat matches the earth's now, not the ocean's. Steady, rooted. You reach a rock and sit. It fits you perfectly, as though it's been waiting for you all along. You rest your hands in your lap. You close your eyes. The comb is still in your pocket. It doesn't need to be used now. Its job is done. A voice nearby begins to sing. Not a battle song, not a boast. Just a tune about fish and fog and things that fade. You let it carry you, not away but inward. The sky above you is full of soft gray stitched with fading gold. You look up at it one last time, then lower your gaze to the earth again. This is where you are, here, still, safe, and slowly, quietly, without any effort at all, you begin to fall asleep.